They say some memories fade with time. The harsh edges soften, the colors dull, leaving behind a faint echo of what once was. But some, they burn brighter with every passing year, etched into your soul like a brand, refusing to let go, even after decades. For me, it's the image of that old wooden bridge, the scent of damp earth after a summer rain, and the chilling sound that used to drift from the river. It was my grandfather's story about the woman by the river. A story I, a foolish young boy, dismissed as mere superstition, until the night I heard her myself. My name is Miguel. Now my hands are gnarled, my hair as white as the winter frost, and my back aches with the wisdom of years. But back then, I was no more than 10 years old, full of a boundless curiosity and a healthy dose of youthful skepticism. It was the mid-1960s, a time when the world seemed simpler, slower. Every summer, my parents would send me away from the bustle of the city to my grandfather's small, dusty farm. It sat nestled in a quiet valley, not far from the Texas-Mexico border, where the land stretched wide and the nights were painted with 1,000,000 stars. His house was old adobe, cool even in the scorching sun, smelling of dried chilies, strong coffee, and the comforting scent of his pipe tobacco. The days were spent chasing chickens, helping with chores, or more often exploring the fields. But the real heart of that farm, for us kids, was the river. The Rio Seco, they called it. Dry river. But it always had a current, lazy and inviting, snaking its way through the willows and cottonwood trees at the edge of his property. It was our playground, our secret world. My grandfather, Abuelo Mateo, was a man carved from the very land he worked. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles, each one a testament to sun, wind, and countless untold stories. And he had many stories. On warm evenings, as the sun bled into the horizon and the fireflies began their silent dance, we'd gather around him on the porch. He'd light his pipe, and his voice, deep and resonant, would weave tales of harvest, of ancestors, and of warnings. He'd often speak of La Mujer que llora, the weeping woman, not with a whisper, but with a gravitas that settled heavy in the humid air. He'd tell us of a beautiful woman heartbroken, driven mad by loss or betrayal. A woman who, in a fit of despair, had taken the lives of her own children in that very river, consumed by a sorrow so vast it twisted her soul into something eternal and terrifying. Now her spirit roamed the river banks, an agonizing wail on the night breeze, forever searching, forever weeping. Ay, mis hijos. He'd mimic her cry, a sound that even in imitation sent shivers down my young spine. He swore her cry was a bad omen, a harbinger of ill fortune, sometimes even a sign that she was looking for more children to replace her lost ones. We'd listen wide-eyed, huddling closer, but the next day, under the bright sun, the fear would melt away like morning dew. The river was just the river, and the woman just a story for old men and nervous women. For a while, life continued as normal. We swam, we fished, we built dams out of stones. We even dared each other to stay by the river a little longer after the sun dipped below the horizon, just to prove Abuelo Mateo wrong. She's not real, or we'd whisper, giggling nervously in the fading light. But then things began to shift. Small things at first. Our dog, Viejo, a usually fearless ranch hound, would sometimes sit by the back porch, staring intently towards the river, his low, mournful whines echoing in the quiet night. Not barking at a coyote, not growling at a stray cat, just whining, with an expression of profound sadness, almost fear. Then my cousin Elena, a year younger than me, began to have nightmares. She'd wake up screaming, talking about a cold hand touching her face by the water, even though she hadn't been near the river after dark. My aunt, a sensible woman, started leaving offerings of tortillas and sweet bread by the old willow tree that dipped into the river. Just in case, she'd say, her eyes darting nervously towards the water, but the real unsettling part came one evening. I was helping Abuelo Mateo mend a fence by the river, the air thick with the scent of sage and damp earth. As the twilight deepened, an unusual stillness fell upon the world. The crickets, usually a constant chorus, fell silent. The frogs, too. Even the gentle rustle of the wind in the willows seemed to hold its breath. It was a silence so profound it pressed in on your ears, making them ring. And then, from somewhere deep in the winding path of the river, almost imperceptibly I heard it. A sound, faint and distant like a moan carried on a dying breeze. It was too soft to be human, too heartbroken to be an animal. Abuelo Mateo stopped his work, his hammer frozen mid-air. He looked at me, his old eyes wide with a fear I'd never seen there before. His lips moved, but no sound came out. That night, sleep didn't come easily. The stories suddenly felt heavier, the river darker. The true terror, however, came weeks later. It was a sweltering summer night, the kind where the air itself felt too thick to breathe. I was restless, tossing and turning in my small bed, a strange, feverish warmth clinging to me. I'd been playing by the river all day, feeling bold again, dismissing the earlier unease as childish jitters. Maybe I'd caught a chill, maybe it was just indigestion from too many of Abuela's tortillas. Whatever it was, sleep wouldn't come, and then I heard it again. Not distant this time, not faint. It was right there, a low, agonizing sob, closer than it had ever been, right outside the house. My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a drumbeat of pure, unadulterated fear. My throat tightened, and a cold sweat drenched my forehead. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to pull the blanket over my head, to squeeze my eyes shut and pray for morning. But something else, a terrifying, morbid curiosity, pulled me towards the window. It was the window that faced the river, partially obscured by the thick, dusty curtain. My hand trembled as I reached out, my fingers fumbling with the fabric. I parted the curtains just enough to peek through. The moonlight, a sickly pale silver, cut through the wisps of fog that had begun to roll in from the river, painting the landscape in shades of ghostly grey. And there she was, standing by the old wooden bridge, where just hours before I had played was a figure, tall and slender, draped in what looked like a tattered, flowing white gown, soaked and clinging to her. Her long, dark hair hung in wet tendrils around a face that was turned towards the river, her body swaying with an almost unnatural grace, like a willow in a silent wind. Then, slowly, agonizingly slowly, she turned her head. Her face, oh, her face. It wasn't a face I could truly describe, not with features or details. It was a landscape of pure, unadulterated sorrow. Her eyes were deep, cavernous hollows, glistening with what might have been tears, or simply the moonlight reflecting off wetness. Her mouth was open in a silent scream, a gaping maw of endless grief. It wasn't a face of anger or malice, but of such profound, eternal sadness that it twisted my stomach into knots. She didn't look at me, not directly. Her gaze was distant, yearning, fixed on the empty river, and then she lifted a hand, a pale, slender hand, dripping with river water, and she extended it slowly, deliberately towards my window, towards the house. It wasn't a beckoning gesture. It was a desperate plea, a reaching out for something forever lost, a silent, desperate call for her children. The sound of her weeping, a guttural, soul-wrenching lament, was no longer just outside. It was inside my head, inside my chest, echoing in the very chambers of my young, terrified heart. It felt like my very soul was being wrung out by her grief, and then everything went black. The terror, the cold, the sound, It was too much for a child's mind to bear. I woke up in my bed days later, drenched in sweat, my throat raw from what my abuela said had been a feverish delirium. I had screamed in my sleep, they told me. Talked nonsense about a woman by the river. They brought a local curandera, a healer, who murmured prayers over me, burning sage and waving palm leaves. But they never truly asked what I saw. Maybe they already knew. I never spoke of that night for years. Not to my parents, not to my cousins, not even to my own children when I was older. How could I? How could I explain a face of pure sorrow, a cry that stripped the soul bare, a hand that reached for emptiness? They would have thought me mad, or simply a child with a vivid imagination. But I knew. Oh, I knew. The experience changed me forever. The innocent, carefree boy who challenged old legends was gone, replaced by someone who understood that some stories aren't just stories. They are warnings. They are echoes of pain that linger beyond the grave. The river, once my playground, became a place of profound respect and silent dread. I never went near its banks after dark again, not for the rest of my summers there. And even now the sound of water rushing in the night wind can send a shiver down my spine. My grandfather never asked me about that night, not directly, but sometimes, when I'd catch his eye across the dinner table, he'd give me a slow, knowing nod, a look that said, "You understand now, don't you, mihijo?" And I did. I understood the weight of his warnings, the truth behind the fear in his eyes. Some say she's just a legend, a tale to keep children safe from the river's treacherous currents. Others believe she is a spirit, forever bound to her terrible mistake, searching, suffering. I don't pretend to know her true nature, or why I was chosen to witness her grief. But I know this, her sorrow is real, her cry is real, and the pain in her eyes, that pain will haunt me until the day I join her in the silence. So, the next time you find yourself near the water at night, and you hear a sound carried on the breeze, a faint, mournful cry that tugs at your heart, don't dismiss it as the wind. Don't rationalize it as an animal. Remember the woman by the river. Remember her desperate plea. And if you hear her call, pray that you are far, far away. Because some griefs are not meant to be shared, and some spirits, they are still searching,